I am joined today, yet again, by Stephen McInerney. Thank you so much for being here with me.
My pleasure, mate. Massive pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's massive. And the voice of football. Thank you so much, Martin Tyler, for being with us today. It's an absolute honor. No matter the circumstance, I wish it could be in better circumstances, but for you to join us today.
Yeah, I do get a fair amount of reaction to that game, even these days. But there are two reactions. One come from Manchester City fans, general football fans who enjoyed the moment, and the others come from people like yourself who go, "You've ruined my life." So I hope I haven't ruined yours too much. But, well, winners and losers, what it's all about, isn't it? In fact, the Manchester derby, because I go pre-Premier League. There was football pre-Premier League, everybody, just to remind you. And the Manchester derbies were very low-key, really. I didn't do the Main Road Massacre. I didn't do that one. I think Clive Tilsey did that. But I'd done a lot of games where really City were just making up the numbers, you know. This was the new City. This is the City that had won the FA Cup. This was the City that were looking as though they got the resources to compete. And they were supposed to win. The only thing I can think about that made me believe that it was going to be the result that happened, but not the way it happened, was that I did a lot of work with the help of people at Manchester City like Simon Heggie about the names of the players' children. Because on the presentation lap, the kids all come on and who's got, you know, I'm also making sure there were no lines that I crossed in looking at the families. And I had all that. And during the game, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but a good friend of mine, an excellent commentator, Rob Hawthorne, was doing the United game. And I was thinking, gosh, Rob, you're going to have all this. I hope you know the kids probably wouldn't be at Sunderland, but I hope you've got something. And being Rob, I'm sure he did have. I never asked him actually what he was prepared for, a trophy lift and all that would go with it. So yeah, it was supposed to happen, but not the way it happened.
I mean, I was watching the game back just to remind myself on the taxi away here, and you see the cuts to the City fans in the stadium and so on, and share their feelings entirely. But you see the look on the face of utterly despondent. There's one young lad in tears, and you see the sheer horror on the face of these City fans is because it's their worst fears unravelling. To beat United, 2 games earlier, to come back from 8 points behind with 6 games left, to be on the cusp of greatness, and then to potentially give it away is like that was our biggest nightmare essentially. With all the former players for QPR, there's just too many angles to it. And that look, when you look at the City fans' faces, that is genuine, oh, we've messed it up here. I'm sure a lot of them would be like, loads more time left. A lot of them didn't believe it. I know, because I felt it. I felt at that moment, a few drinks down, admittedly, so I was definitely not in the most emotionally secure state, but I definitely felt we'd messed it up here. I could feel it, because it was just an absurd reality to be unfolding in front of you, to be down to a relegation-threatened side against 10 men with a former City player sent off. Just too many boxes being ticked for an incredible story here.
I think a lot of newer fans who have maybe been introduced to the sport the last 5 or 6 or even 10 years, who have grown up on City's dominance and also grown up on United's disarray, are probably having a hard time conceptualizing what we're talking about here. But I think you really have to cast your mind back to where both clubs were in the food chain at this point. Man United always won. They always
won 12 Premier League titles at that time. Yeah, the 13th was the year after.
They'd won 4 in 5 years.
Yeah. And Sir Alex, having threatened to retire, had come back stronger and more determined to keep on top of it. City were, the investment was there, but we've seen other teams invest,
of course,
and it hasn't always worked. But they really were on the cusp, I think. Had it gone against them that day, goodness knows what we'd be talking about now. It would have been a real punch in the solar plexus for them. It would have taken a lot of getting over. We're just talking here on the back of Crystal Palace having won the FA Cup, getting knocked out by a team not in the top non-league level, the second non-league level, and that takes so much away. That would have had that sort of taking it away from winning the cup the year before, and because United would have benefited from it. So it was. I do understand, and obviously I've done a lot of football commentary since all this happened, but I do understand why we get asked about it a lot, because I swear you'll never see anything like it again. Yeah. And I believe that, and it's got a place that will live on beyond all of us. I think it'll never be forgotten. Yeah.
The thing is, the context of the game as well is everyone looks at what City are now. There's a lot of cynicism around City these days with the investment, the money, and so on, all the noise. I get it as a City fan, I understand it. But City weren't that club right then. If anything, there was a sort of curiosity where City were coming from. There wasn't this in general dislike or disdain of Manchester City. We had money, but people weren't bothered about spending it back then. If anything, there was a sort of fascination to see United knock down a peg or two. There was, and so in fact, a lot of neutrals were sort of fascinated by the idea of City winning.
Everybody tells me they were supporting City at the
they weren't like that. Was City weren't really seen as these cash-rich sides that everyone sort of wanted to knock down like they do now. And so it was a game of we were sort of seen as the underdogs, which feels wild to say now in 2026, but back then it was true. People wanted to knock down the giants of United, and we were piffily dismissed as Ferguson as the noisy neighbours and all this kind of stuff. We had the Tevez link as well. Mancini and Ferguson have been
what a rivalry.
Yeah, they hate each other. It was great fun to watch. Too much politeness in football these days, I would argue. Give me that. Give me managers tussling on the sidelines again. And of course, it's in Balotelli, wrestling with Ferdinand, in Wembley. All that bled into it as well. So there was a brewing hatred between the two collectives, not just the teams, not just the clubs, but between the sets of players as well, after the 6-1 as well. So
the gap between the two clubs was much faster than we think about it now, because obviously where City have come from since. But it was starting to turn, and that's why it's so dramatic, because had it gone the other way, I remember one of the angriest managers I ever saw was Arsene Wenger after they lost the semi-final to United, the semi-final replay when Bergkamp missed a penalty and Ryan Giggs scored the last ever goal in an FA Cup semi-final replay to absolutely rubber-stamped his place in FA Cup history. And Wenger thought, I've done more than lose a game here. I've lost the grip that I had on the rivalry. And I think City would have gone back a long way. I know United won the league the next year, but had that gone wrong, that would have been, you've got it in the palm of your hand, and somehow you've thrown it away.